Oh, welcome to the show. I'm Joe Hyde. I'm with Governor Rick Perry. Were you the longest serving governor?
So far.
So far?
14 years and a few days.
Anyway, Governor Perry and I share the same ring. And so I decided, since we have a lot of Aggies in San Angelo, I'd start it off with a good, Aggie question. Your classmate, John Sharp, has announced that he's going to step down. Who's going to replace him?
Yeah, I asked John to come. Interesting story here. I asked John to come be the chancellor, I want to say like in 08, 09, and he couldn't because he had a financial responsibility with the company he was working for. And then I came back in 2012 after we had our opening at the chancellor, and he said, yeah, he could. And and he's done a fabulous job. You look at the 12 years, I think that's the longest serving chancellor in Texas A&M history. He's really put the school on a great trajectory. The building program that they had, the Relish campus that's out there, the reputation that we've got, the law school in Fort Worth. I mean, the list goes on and on about what John has overseen as the chancellor. So, my hat's off to him. He's worked hard. He's done a great job, and he's 74 years old, and time to go enjoy,
being retired.
And I suspect that's what he's going to do. John's wife, Charlotte, passed away. I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, and then he's remarried, has a new wife, lovely lady. So hopefully he's going to go spend some time with her, with his family, with his children, with his grandchildren. Well deserved. So,
well, as the longest serving governor, you certainly have you got to have the inside track. Who are they looking at to replace John Sharp?
Well, and I'm not being coy here. I don't know, but I suggest there's a model, and John's a pretty good model. I think they'll pick somebody who is not an academician. Frankly, you don't need the fox guarding the hen house, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So you don't want somebody who spent all of their life in academia, right, as the person who's overseeing it. You want somebody who knows how to operate in Austin, Texas, the appropriations process. So that's one of the reasons.
Sounds like the comptroller.
John was very successful.
He was a CPA too, wasn't he an accountant?
John, no, I don't think he was a CPA. He got his degree in public policy back from his master's. I think he was poli-sci from A&M bachelor. His master's degree was from San Marcos,
right?
Texas State, and that was an MPA. But anyway, the point is, I think having someone that understands Austin, knows how it works, and there's a number of those. I think about Todd Staples, former ag commissioner or former senator, or ran for lieutenant governor. I mean, he's an incredibly talented guy. I think the comptroller, as you mentioned, his name's been
Glenn Hager.
Glenn Hager, he's been talked about out there. So, my instinct is a person who knows Texas A&M, understands it, respects it, would have a leg up. And knowing how to navigate that Austin legislative, particularly the appropriation side, probably be a pretty good benefit. So, great job. I look forward to whoever they're going to pick.
All right, moving on. You talked about the legislature. This past election, the primary, the March primaries, you got involved as the longest serving governor, and you threw your cachet behind Dave Phelan, who was the Speaker of the House, who some would say was under fire for whatever reason, because I think he's pretty conservative, but he was under fire. And what I see that happened, because I covered the legislative, all the House seats, and particularly Drew Darby out here and Stan Lambert up in Abilene, is that you had a lot of money came in from out of state.
Yeah.
And if you go back and look at Dave Phelan's campaign finance reports and how many votes he got, I think he spent about $1,000 a vote to defend his seat.
That's probably correct. It was a massive amount of money, and in some cases, I would suggest to you almost all of the money came from out of his legislative district, and a lot of it even from out of state. So it's always been a bit of an irritant to me to have people from, in this case, Pennsylvania,
Right.
or from
Utah.
yeah, or even from outside of your legislative district.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go back to something you said that is a truth. This was potentially, and I think some would argue, the most conservative legislative session in Texas history.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been working in that environment now for
Your entire
nearly
life.
40 years.
Yeah.
And I know the process pretty well. You would not have a result like Texas legislature had if the speaker wasn't helping make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's one of the three most influential people in the process. So after the session was over with, the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker all collectively stood up and said, "This is the most conservative session of the legislature." And people, appropriately applauded them. And
Mm-hmm.
then we see this attack on Dade Phelan not being sufficiently conservative
It was a purity test.
in their views.
Yeah.
So I came from a school of listen, I worked with some of the more liberal members of the legislature. It didn't change my philosophical position, but if I needed to get something done, I got to have some Democrat votes. And I think that was what I admired about Dade. Dade was a conservative. Dade delivered conservative results, and he reached across the aisle from time to time. People that would stand up and say, "We're going to have a litmus test, and if you're going to be the speaker, you cannot put a Democrat as a chairman." I don't agree with that. Because, what? 45% of the legislature are Democrats. They represent their districts. Then why wouldn't you ask some Democrats to be chairman? They have Democrat chairman in the Senate.
Yeah.
They have Democrat chairman historically.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been able to manage. So I'm not going to get into personalities or what have you. I'll let somebody else do that. I look at results. Dade Phelan had good results. The issue of school, I'm for school choice. I've been for school choice for 20 years. I never could pass it as governor.
Mm-hmm.
Dade Phelan actually got the school choice bill out of committee for the first time in history. I would think people would be going, good job. But school choice seems to be the hang up here.
Right.
Again, I'm for it. I think competition's a good thing. Public schools, they don't have a monopoly on children, so let them compete.
Mm-hmm.
Argue about money, argue about how much money, all of that, that's fine. But me personally, I'm for school choice. I think it makes sense to have that competition. But he got the bill out of committee, didn't pass the House, will of the House worked. It seems to work pretty good. But anyway, the point is, I think Dade Phelan was a thoughtful, fair, good Speaker of the House. I think history will show that. The state of Texas is doing quite well economically and otherwise. And his approach, I think, was the right approach. So I saw no reason to do anything other than say, Dade's done a good job. I'm going to stand up with him and support him. So it was a pretty easy choice for me.
You've been watching the legislature for a long time. Dade Phelan, obviously, if he goes back to try to get reelected as speaker, he's got this cabal of 21 Republicans who are either in the House already or already elected, or they're the Republican nominees, and certainly to win their November elections, they've created this contract with Texas, which goes toward, no Democrat chairs. I think they were raising hell about selling land to China and things like that. Do you think that there's going to be a big enough movement to kick Dave Phelan out?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and argue point by point the issues that a group would put in front. I would tell you, having been the Secretary of Energy and having served on the National Security Council, having the state have some oversight on Chinese-owned land, I agree with that. I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
I think that makes some good legislative sense. My bet is Dave Phelan thinks that's a good idea.
I think so too. Yeah.
But the idea that you're going to say we're not going to have a Democrat chairman is basically saying to the legislative process, you Democrats go over there and stand in the corner. If we need you, we'll call you. Guess what? You have to have 100+ votes to pass the appropriations bill. You're going to have some Democrat votes.
And we only have 75 reps, Republican reps.
Bingo. So if you're saying to a group of people that can hold you hostage for your appropriations, you might want to rethink that.
Right. All right, so you have been, obviously the big story right now in politics is Trump. We could say it's the...
He's been the big story in politics for the last decade.
Yeah, since 2015.
It's really fascinating.
Yes.
From the moment he walked down that elevator, listen, I was still running for president the second time in 2015.
Right.
And when he walked down the elevator, I was kind of like, he didn't have a chance.
Right.
That's how bad I missed it. And I saw an individual, and still think this, I think he's one of the most talented political figures I've ever been around in my life. This guy can read the room, so to speak. He can understand what the people want as well as any single politician in American history. Now, do I always agree with him? No. We've had things that we didn't agree upon. I said some pretty nasty stuff about him in 2015. I wanted to see, can I nick this guy? Can I make him bleed? And I couldn't.
Does he take the oxygen out of the room?
Absolutely. He's bigger than life. Fascinating guy, and frankly, one-on-one, one of the smartest people I've ever dealt with.
Really?
Oh, he is very, very smart. He is a brilliant man. Does he grade people? Does he say stuff on purpose to spin people up? Absolutely, he does. But what's his result? We talked a little bit earlier about I'm a results guy. The process is the process.
Right.
But I'm a results person. The results that Donald Trump got as president of the United States were stunningly good. And here's what I tell people. I've got friends who go, he wears me out. He makes me mad. He irritates me. He says stuff that just, and I'm kind of like, I get it. But what's the result? And what's the team that he will bring to serve America? And if you can get people to, take your personal feelings and put them in your back pocket, what's better for America? As I look at this vice president who's now appearing to be the Democrats' choice, and her position on open border, her position on letting people come in here and doing away with any criminal charges for the way they came into this country and making them eligible for Medicare, making them eligible for Social Security, it basically bankrupts that system for the rest of
But it
us.
also makes them eligible to vote.
And there's nothing right about that. And I think, regardless of what your political background is, unless you want to see the American system disintegrate, if you think America is so bad that you just want to throw it out the window, that's where it appears defund the police, not supporting our police officers, setting up a fund to pay for the Black Lives Matter people that clearly were rioting in the streets and doing massive harm to not only police and law enforcement, but to property, private property. I mean, there's never been as clear a position, a clear choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. If you want to see America move forward economically, from a national defense standpoint, from energy policy, Donald Trump.
Right.
And the men and women he will bring to his cabinet, to the people that will work with him, there's the big difference. Well, a big difference that I think people need to keep in mind. She will bring the continuation of this crazy, woke, and quite frankly, not qualified group of people to meet diversity and inclusiveness and equity and the woke craziness that we see out of the Biden administration. Matter of fact, she'll even up the ante on that.
So you were the energy secretary under Trump during his first administration. Obviously, you had to work with him. You had meetings with him. Tell me what he's really like.
Yeah. As I said to you, one of the smartest people I've ever been around in my life.
Did he listen to people?
Now, that's sometime not his best suit.
Really?
But if you know how to get his attention, and there were times when I came in, I said, Mr. President, you need to really listen to me here because this is important.
Right.
And he'll stop and pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not strong enough personality, if you're not willing to do that, he might not pay attention to you. So my point is, you got to know how to work with him. He respects people that he finds to have strong opinions and will confront him. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are afraid of this. Is the president.
He wants people to put it out there.
This is the president of the United States. I mean, a lot of people are intimidated when they walk in. I mean, he's not only a physically imposing person, he's a mentally imposing person. Mm-hmm. And if you come ill prepared, you probably won't get invited back.
All right. Well, what are your predictions? You think Trump's going to pull it off?
I do. I think after the American people have kind of gotten over the sugar high of, oh gosh, we get to elect the first African American female president of the United States, and she can dance. Mm-hmm. See on my TikTok, she's dancing. Isn't that cool? And we look at policies. She is a leftist, Marxist, who doesn't believe in supporting law enforcement, believes in open borders, wants to ban fracking. And listen, I don't buy into I was against fracking before I was for fracking. I know this administration, and she's going to be worse, are anti-fossil fuels. If you live in Pennsylvania or Ohio or Texas or Louisiana or New Mexico, and you see the jobs that get created by the fossil fuel industry, get ready for it to be under attack with a Harris administration. So I think reality and results will distill down into November with a Trump victory.
Well, thank you very much for interviewing with me.
Thanks,
Mr.
Brother
Governor Rick Perry.
God bless you, brother.
Texas A&M class of 72.
Bless.
Is it 72?
Class of 72. Last of the old army.
70? No, I was 82. I was the last of the old army. Anyway, back to the studio.
That's